This is Action and Ambition, the show that takes you all over the world to share interviews with the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their backstory, get the most important lessons they've learned on their road to success, and hear exclusive tips on how to implement their success in your own life. Action and Ambition is brought to you by Entrepreneur Magazine and your host, Andrew Metal.
Welcome back to the Action and Ambition podcast. We are here with Farah Ali, and Farah is a entrepreneur. She is a real estate investor, and she has an inspirational journey to share with us. We checked in with her about a year ago, and it looks like she had 28 houses of a real estate portfolio in the past 6 years. So I'm sure there's even more since then. So we'll get an update on that. And she has battled an uncertain future and become a real estate investor. She is the co-founder of We Win LLC, which is an organization founded on the principle that no woman should feel left alone on her entrepreneurship and investment journeys. And she has a book called Diaries of a Female Real Estate Investor. Farah, glad to be talking to you.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
I'm super happy to have you. And we heard a little bit about what you do and what you're all about and this whole real estate thing. So did I miss anything, or what would you feel is the right angle or slant on telling us how wonderful you are?
That's pretty hard to do, actually, because I'm not one to self-promote, but I think you did a great job. Yeah, I started, co-founded We Win, which is a platform, like you said, that gets women encouraged and inspired and educated to get into real estate investing. So we started that a couple of years ago, and it's been doing really well. We've had quite a few women investors, been very, very successful actually in the past couple of years. And then we also, during COVID, we started, the same team started a non-for-profit called We Win Foundation. So what we're doing is we're going to different communities that we, invest in, or that we're a part of, and kind of do like food drives, turkey drives, toy drives, things like that. It's like kind of like landlords giving back, so we're doing that. And as far as, real estate, I've been chugging along. I've had a really, really great year this year. I know you had mentioned that I was at 28 rentals, and now I'm up to 38. I've done at least 4 flips in between them. And I'm actually not moving, but I'm going to Florida to invest there as well. So trying out a different market and new construction.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm amazed and impressed. And so what would you say is your real estate strategy? Because it seems like everyone has their way of like finding their criteria and what's a good or a bad deal for them. And they want deals of like a certain size, certain frequency. So what's your approach to all this?
So my strategy is I mainly invest in what we call B and C pockets. So the A pockets, which are affluent, our model doesn't work very well there. We want the bread and butter. We want areas where there's more rentals. Because if you go in affluent areas, there's limited people that will rent, right? Most people are homeowners there. So we want to go in areas where people are renting. My model is buying something usually under $150,000. So anywhere between, 50 to 150 grand is what I spend for purchase, putting in a rehab amount of, anywhere between whatever, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever it takes to bring it up. But I always want to have at least 30% equity once I am done with that project. And then I just refinance it, add it to my rental portfolio. Now, I've done some flips recently because the market is super hot for flips. And the other thing is that at some point I'm deciding, it was at 25, but that didn't work. I'm deciding that I want to pay off my properties instead of just accumulating a huge rental portfolio. So I feel that maybe instead of having 50 unpaid properties, maybe have 25 paid off properties, and that cash flow would be the same. It's a lot less to manage, right? So that's why I started doing some flips and going that route. But yeah, those are kind of my numbers and the areas that I invest in and my personal strategy to my portfolio.
And that's interesting to think about, because it seems like, in any business, there's maybe like 5 or 6 factors of like whatever you're pushing up against, right? Like if you say like, well, I have this number of employees, or in your case, like this number of properties. And it seems like there's like kind of like an equation to be had there as far as saying, well, maybe right out of the gate, I'll have this goal. I'll have like X number of properties. I'm like, I don't care how much of a hassle it is. I don't care how much time it is. I just want to get the cash flow built up. But then once you kind of get to that goal or get close to it, then you have more option. And then you can kind of reconfigure and say like, okay, well, I have the money part of it solved at least somewhat. And now I can look at the other factors. And it maybe seems like it's something similar with you as far as like getting the number of properties up and then like dialing it back down and saying, well, if I can have the same cash flow, but with more security, I can sleep better at night. It seems like that's kind of what you're going for. Is that on the right track?
Yeah, exactly. So every investor is different. And, some people say, well, that's probably not the best business strategy. You should just continue accumulating debt and getting more properties. But there is for some people, that peace of mind, right? Not if your tenant just happens not to pay, that you don't have a mortgage to pay. So, and it's like, it all depends on who you are as a person. So my first goal was originally, my first goal was 5 properties because that's what I thought I could get to. And I thought that was a big deal, right? But once you get to 5, you're like, wait, I can actually go to 10 and then 20 and it just so on and so forth. But, my personal goal was, what am I going to feel comfortable with? And I felt comfortable with $25,000 a month net cash flow coming in. That's like my goal, right? And I feel like I could go on as many vacations as I want. My lifestyle at $25,000 a month would be, I'm not looking to buy a jet or anything like that. But I want to be comfortable and I want to be able to give back. So once I hit those 25 properties, I'm like, well, why not just get those paid off? But what happens is when you get to that number, you just don't stop. It's kind of addicting and you just keep going. So that's why I'm like, from rentals to flips, and I'm sure I'll just continue doing some more rentals because there are some houses where I'm like, this house is great for my portfolio. And what I'm going to do is in the areas that are even better, I'll keep those properties and maybe start letting go of some of those older properties where I feel like the equity is high. Maybe I can sell it, or maybe it wasn't the best of areas when I first started and I kind of took what I could get type of thing. So I'll just clean up my portfolio a little bit, make it more quality. Not that it isn't quality already, but
but it does seem like when you mention like there's like the A and the B and the C,
yeah.
and you focus on the B and C, there's definitely like a range of what sorts of deals that you say yes to and what you say no to. And so, and what's like the exact reason for that? Because I imagine as someone who like doesn't know a ton about real estate, I imagine that maybe if the properties are like too good, then it's too much of your cash tied up, or maybe a little bit difficult to get in and out of. And then I'm sure that you don't want like a property where the house is almost falling down. And it seems really more exciting to have like a rentable property. That way you can get a tenant in there quick. And then I imagine too, when it comes time to sell the property, to be able to say, hey, this already has tenants built in. That's exciting to a lot of buyers. So what's kind of your thought process as far as like, why will you say yes to one property and no to another?
So major factor of that is the area, right? So I pay attention to taxes. A lot of my investments are here in the Chicago area and in the suburbs of Chicago. And you could have a suburb that will have $2,000 more taxes than the one right next to it. And so those are things that will affect your cash flow. So if there's a property where if the annual taxes are, let's just say $6,500 or $7,000, and those are usually in areas that are what we call the D areas. And they, the quality of people paying on time and all of that is a lot less. And that's not something that, I want to personally deal with. Now, there are people who are, they get those properties at great prices and they're willing to deal with that. But for me personally, I'd rather have more peace of mind, pay a little bit more, have more equity after I build it up. Because the formula is the same, doesn't matter where you go. You buy it at the right prices when you make the money. So it's just that I prefer to have properties where I can sell them quick. If I ever need to sell an asset in a sort of emergency, if I need capital, and where I'm not going to have as much headaches dealing with the tenants.
And in building up these properties and figuring out this portfolio, have you dealt with some of the recent craziness with the real estate market? Because like and then it depends on what year someone's listening to our interview, because things come and go. But
Yeah.
sometimes you hear, especially as we're recording this, like some people will list something on the market and it'll be sold like that day, and there's like tons of bids. So have you come up across any of that, like the ultra competition right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in the past 3 months, I've done 3 flips, and all of them were in great areas. And the day that I put them on the market, honestly, there was anywhere between 10 to 20 offers on each property. I think one of them even had close to 30 offers. And it's very, very nice to be in that situation. At the same time, it's not always about who's got the highest, who's giving me the highest offer. You have to look at your candidate, because there were people who were putting in crazy pricing just to lock in the deal. And then when you look at everything else, maybe there were an FHA, a not conventional, and FHA are very, very strict when it comes to inspections. So other challenges that you might have to go through when picking your buyer, right? So it's not always about just the money. So I had to go through those 20, 30 offers and be like, okay, well, are they pre-approved? Are they putting in a crazy price because they're just trying to lock in the deal, and then come back and try to negotiate the price down? Things like that I would have to pay attention to. So, but yeah, it's a great market right now to be in, selling for sure. And actually, on the opposite side, as an investor, it's tough for some investors to be purchasing properties at this time, because nobody wants to overpay for an investment property. But even regardless of that, I've switched my strategy a little bit, where I'm going more towards off-market deals, connecting with other wholesalers who are out there marketing these deals, and then they're bringing them to me. So I don't have to use any of my marketing funds. Yes, I'm paying a little bit of a premium to the wholesaler, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, the deal makes sense, and I'm paying a lot less than something that's listed on the MLS.
That's cool. You're thinking outside the box in a way. And so what's cool about a lot of what you're mentioning here is that it seems like there's some things that are just a hassle that a lot of people like won't deal with, but you will. And then there's even an extent where you won't, there's some hassles that you won't deal with, but there's again like your area of what you will do and what you won't do. And then there's also a lot of what you're mentioning here is like some of the techniques that you'd only notice when you're in the trenches, right? Some of this real estate stuff seems nice and good in theory, but then, well, what about this neighborhood with the high taxes? Or what about these tenants that are easy to get, but might be like a little bit of a headache? And so there's kind of how things are nice and tidy on paper, but then a little bit ugly in the real world. And I imagine that maybe you have some interesting stories of just being in the middle of it, because you always worry about when you hear about real estate investors and they have like the nightmare tenants or like they deal with an eviction or something. So have you ever dealt with some kind of like real struggle there with your real estate journey?
Actually, I've had one tenant I had to evict, and I was kicking myself later, because I remember when we were signing the lease, like the day that she came to the property, and I had slightly from the corner of my eyes noticed that she had a bunch of stuff in her car. Like her car was like filled with stuff, and I didn't really think anything of it. But we signed the lease. She paid the first couple of months. After that, she stopped paying. And what I realized later, and this is obviously you learn through experience, is that the stuff she had in her car was a bunch of stuff, because she got evicted from her previous home. So she just put everything in her car and was looking for a new place to live. And a lot of times these landlords, they don't want to go through the eviction process, depending on what, where you live, what county you live in. The eviction process can take a long time, or it can take as little as 3 weeks. Specifically in Chicago, eviction process takes anywhere between 4 to 5 months, and I'm not even counting during COVID. I'm saying without even COVID being present, it takes a while. So we have to really do the proper background checks, look for red flags and things like that. And I felt like if I had just given a little bit more thought to why she wanted to move in so quickly, that she was willing to sign a lease right away, pay cash, and not thinking that she got cash for keys from another landlord because they didn't want to go through the eviction process. So what they did was, hey, I won't file eviction if I give you, $1,000, $1,200, whatever she got paid. And so these are things that we can't catch because they're not on the background check, but scenarios like that do happen. So I went about 6 months without rent, but luckily it was a 2-flat that I had, so I had the other tenant paying, so it kind of covered most of that mortgage payment. So it didn't really end up being too bad of a scenario for me, but lesson learned for sure. When somebody is too eager, you're like, okay, I wonder what's going on.
Yeah, it's going to almost have to play detective and kind of look at a few different clues and then say, okay, well, I won't be judging the person just based on that, but if there are some other candidates, maybe I can factor that in. And you hear about that sometimes with these real estate people, that they're careful not to be over leveraged, that they say, well, I might have this unit where it sits vacant or the person's not paying for X number of months, and just this not being at capacity won't break the bank. So that's an interesting lesson right there. And so that's a little bit about a little bit of a negative story, but not too bad. Do you have any exciting, uplifting stories for us, kind of on the other side of it? Because I'm sure people are listening who are hopeful entrepreneurs, who are real estate people who want more. So what do you have that's kind of in the positive region?
So there's a lot of positive stories, but I'll talk about one of my recent flips that I did. So I had an agent actually contact me because he knows I had closed a deal with him previously, and he knew that I was an investor, and everything went smooth with the last transaction. So he's like, instead of listing it, he reached out to me and he said, hey, there's this lady, and she does not want her property listed because she recently went through a difficult time. And due to that, she didn't really upkeep her property. And so she didn't want to list it because she was worried maybe the neighbors were going to come take a look at the house, and she didn't want that reputation, right? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take a look at it. So I go over there. It's in a great area. The house is, it's in great condition. And her definition of not upkeeping the house, honestly, was because she had a couple dogs and they messed up the carpeting and the flooring. And that was pretty much it. And there was some odor to it, pet odor to it, but everything else was perfectly fine. So I was like, oh, I'll surely take this, And so I got that property for $220,000. And I only put $10,000 into it. And I sold that property for $325,000, and it sold right away. And it was, honestly, all I put was paint and flooring, put it on the market. It sold, multiple offers, all of that. So there's definitely stories like that. And you have to be in the real estate game. There's always, you want to get started, you want to start networking, you want people to know that you're an investor. But as you start doing these deals, you no longer have to search for deals. Honestly, they just start coming towards you, because now you build rapport with agents or wholesalers, or people know that you're investing. Like, oh yeah, I remember her, she invests, let me reach out to her. So there's so many stories like that, but that was the most recent, and I think that was probably my quickest flip where I made a good amount of money. And so it was, and it helped her out, and her problem was solved too, because we were able to close quickly, and she was able to get out of the house as soon as she wanted to. So it was a win-win for everybody.
It seems like it. It seems exciting. And I imagine that maybe some other real estate investors might have just quickly overlooked it and said, oh, well, that's some custom thing, I don't even want to deal with that. But you just said well, maybe it's just the way she saw it, maybe the way that she phrased it. She said the house needs a lot of work, but it's there was nothing wrong with the foundation or the plumbing or any of that. Right. It was just her own kind of just being a little bit embarrassed. So that's super nice of you for giving her a chance and making it work. And it seems like it really paid off. And so speaking of things paying off and giving back and all that, can you tell us about these these food drives and these other things that you're doing to give back to the community? Because you mentioned that at the beginning, and that seems really interesting.
Yeah. So, during COVID, what happened was, as soon as COVID hit, and, even I was afraid. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I should invest, because I don't know if these people are going to be able to pay me rent. And I was thinking all sorts of things, just like most investors were, because it was a time period where it was very uncertain. We weren't sure if people were going to lose their jobs and if they were going to pay rent. So during that time, we were like, okay, I'm going to kind of maybe not do anything with real estate for a month or two, but what can I do with this time? And that's when my friend and I, she's an attorney, Gina Diaz, we're like, hey, why don't we, work on that non-for-profit we were always talking about. And so what we did was we picked a community. First, we picked a community where we had a couple of rental properties. We reached out to the village and like, hey, do you want to partner up and we'll do a food drive for the whole area? So, we ended up feeding, I think that was our first one, about 300 and so people. And then from there, we just grew. So we have a lot of investor friends that were donating to our foundation. And we just kind of went from community to community to community, different communities all throughout the Chicago area, and communities that needed it, right? That's where we kind of focused on. And so we did, a turkey drive. I think we had given away at least 600 turkeys. We did a toy drive in December of last year, and we gave away 3,000 toys. And it was very eye-opening because there was about 2,000 people standing in line in the cold of dead winter for 4 hours plus just to get a $10 toy for their child. So, when I saw the line, I was just like, I can't believe that people are this much in need. And it just inspired us to do even more. So we've just continued to do whatever we can. Last month, we did a back to school drive. We gave away close to 900 backpacks with school supplies in them for the schools in the area that the kids would need help. So we're just trying to give back to the community. It feels good. We've been blessed and we want to be able to help in any way that we can.
Well, fantastic. And it seems like it's tapping into what you mentioned a few minutes ago of once you try something out, you set a goal, you hit that goal, and then it becomes addicting and almost a little bit overwhelming in a good way. And you say, well, how can I keep this going and how can I do more of this? Because it feels so good to be a good person and not just be the richest person in the graveyard and accomplish something and use that to help other people. It's super cool to hear about. And also just this whole idea of having an idea and building into a huge beast and just growing and growing. It's like super awesome. And so as far as what you have going on, can you tell us what you have happening up on the horizon, like future projects, exciting plans, and any URLs or resources you want to mention today?
Sure. So I had recently wrote the book, like you mentioned, Diaries of a Female Real Estate Investor, which is on Amazon. And for anyone that wants to, learn more about real estate investing that's newer, I actually developed a course as well. So it's called Getting Primed for Real Estate. It's on my website, farahali.org. And also my new projects personally is, I'm still kind of investing here and there in Chicago, but there's certain areas near Tampa, not in actual Tampa, but near the Tampa areas that we've identified that we're going to be building duplexes on. So my plan is to build 18 duplexes. So it's new construction from the ground up. I'm learning right now. I've bought 4 pieces of land so far, which I can build 6 duplexes on. So I'm going to start with that first. We're in the process of getting our architectural drawings and all of that. And then we're going to, build up and then we'll just keep growing from there. So that's really exciting. It's just a different avenue. It's a different, realm of real estate investing than what I'm used to.
Amazing. And I'm excited for you. And it seems like this whole building a business of any kind, real estate or not, it's like an expression of who you are. And so I can kind of see the creativity and the thinking outside the box and the avoiding boredom and making smart, calculated, strategic moves. So it's really exciting to hear about. And you have to keep us up to date as far as your journey as this moves forward. farahali.org is the place to go for people to find out about what you're up to, about your book. And as we wind down here today, do you have any final parting words or advice? Anything to say to kind of wrap up this whole conversation?
I would say my word of advice is for those people who want to get started or scale up. you gotta change. Your mindset has to be one of growth, that you have to get over your fear. You really do. Once you hit, because if everybody would be doing it if you don't have to go through that one hurdle, but you need to go through hurdles, and the hurdles keep coming. But as long as you believe in yourself, as long as you believe in your ability, and you don't have to have all the answers right now. Just like right now, I don't have all the answers to new construction, but I'm going along the way, and I have a group of investors that we're all doing this along the way. So find yourself a support group, find yourself a group of investors to hang out with, and start. Just take action, and you will see that momentum will pick up. You take one step forward, something will come your way. You take another step forward, something will come your way, and pretty soon you'll have a rental portfolio or flips or whatever your goal is.
Very inspiring, very powerful. FarahAli.org. We will see you there.
Thanks for listening to Action and Ambition with your host, Andrew Metal. Please leave a review and subscribe, and go to andrewmetal.com for all the exclusive lessons, behind-the-scenes footage, and video content of the show. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Action and Ambition, and we'll see you on the next episode.